I found out I wasn't invited to the family cruise through a Facebook photo. My sister Emma had posted a picture of boarding passes fanned out like playing cards with the caption, "Family vacation time, 23 passes." I counted them twice, my coffee growing cold, as I stared at my phone screen at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday. 23 family members heading to the Caribbean for what Mom had been calling the trip of a lifetime for 8 months. Everyone except me. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was the one who'd suggested a family cruise in the first place. Last Christmas, when Mom complained that we never did anything together as a family anymore, I'd pulled up cruise websites right there at the dinner table. "Look, Mom, we could get a group rate. I'll help organize everything." I'd spent hours researching ships, comparing cabins, calling travel agents. I even offered to handle the booking myself since I work in event planning and knew how to get better deals. But apparently, there wasn't enough space. That's what Mom told me when I called her that morning, my voice carefully neutral. "Oh, honey, you know how these things go. The cabins fill up so fast, and with your uncle bringing his new girlfriend and cousin Jake's kids, we just ran out of room." Her voice had that practiced casualness that comes from rehearsing a lie. "Maybe next time." Next time. As if this was some annual tradition, and not the first family vacation we'd attempted in 15 years. I should have seen it coming. I'm the family workhorse, not the family favorite. That honor has always belonged to Emma Golden, child extraordinaire, who could do no wrong in my mother's eyes. Emma, who forgot Mom's birthday 3 years running, but was forgiven with a laugh. Emma, who borrowed $5,000 from our grandmother and never paid it back, but she's just going through a rough patch. Emma, who moved back home at 32 with her 2 kids and treated Mom like a live-in babysitter while she found herself. Meanwhile, I was the one who drove Mom to every doctor's appointment when Dad died. I was the one who spent my savings helping her keep the house when the insurance didn't cover everything. I was the one who organized Dad's funeral, handled the probate, and spent countless weekends helping her sort through 40 years of accumulated life, when Emma was too overwhelmed to help. But somehow there wasn't room for me on a ship that holds 3,000 passengers. The worst part wasn't even the exclusion itself. It was the casual cruelty of it. The assumption that I'd just accept it, that I'd swallow this latest slight with the same quiet dignity I'd shown for years. They didn't even have the decency to lie creatively. Not enough space on a cruise ship, as if I was stupid. I sat in my kitchen that morning, staring at those boarding passes on my phone screen, and something inside me finally cracked. Not broke. I'd been broken for years. But something shifted like a tectonic plate finding a new position. For 38 years, I'd been the reliable one. The one who showed up, cleaned up, and shut up. The one who absorbed everyone else's problems and somehow made it work. But maybe it was time to stop working so hard. I deleted Facebook from my phone that day. I also canceled the automatic transfer I'd been making to Mom's account every month to help with her mortgage. 23 boarding passes, but not enough space for the daughter who'd been keeping her house from foreclosure for the past 4 years. The money would look good in my savings account instead. They were gone for 10 days. 10 blissful days of silence from the family group chat. No crisis calls from Mom. No requests to babysit Emma's kids, or help cousin Sarah move, or organize another family dinner that somehow became my responsibility to host and clean up after. For the first time in years, my phone stayed quiet. I used those 10 days well. I researched lawyers. I looked into my grandmother's will, the one that had been lost, according to Mom, but that I'd found a copy of in Dad's papers. I made some interesting phone calls to banks and insurance companies. Most importantly, I made peace with the idea that sometimes love isn't enough to overcome years of being treated like you don't matter. When they returned tanned and happy and full of stories, No one asked how I'd spent those 10 days. No one brought me a souvenir or seemed to notice that I'd been gone from their lives entirely. Emma posted 2 photos from the trip. I know, because I counted them 2 from my new fake Instagram account. Not one person looked like they missed me. That's when I knew for certain that I'd never really been family to them at all. I'd been the help. The first sign they noticed something was different came 3 weeks after they returned from their cruise. Mom called me on a Thursday evening, her voice tight with confusion. "Honey, there seems to be some mistake with my mortgage payment. The bank called and said I'm behind." I was stirring pasta sauce when she called my phone propped between my shoulder and ear. I took my time answering, savoring the weight of the words before I spoke them. "Oh, that's because I stopped making those payments. I figured since there wasn't room for me on the family vacation, there wasn't room for my money in the family budget either." The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Then, but honey, you know I count on that help. You know things are tight since your father died. Things had been tight for 4 years. My monthly transfers had kept her house out of foreclosure, but apparently not tight enough to skip a 10-day Caribbean cruise. I listened to her stumble through explanations, how she'd saved for months, how Uncle Bill had helped with costs, how it really had been about space limitations. Each word felt like vindication. "I'm sure you'll figure it out, Mom. You're very resourceful." I hung up before she could respond. The family group chat exploded the next day. Emma, suddenly concerned about family finances, posted a long message about how we all need to pull together and support Mom. Cousin Jake chimed in with suggestions about budgeting. Aunt Linda shared an article about financial planning for seniors. Everyone had advice. No one offered actual money, except they all expected me to. Emma called me directly that weekend. "What's this about you cutting off Mom financially? That's really selfish, don't you think? I was grocery shopping when she called comparing prices on coffee brands in the international aisle. The irony of standing surrounded by vacation souvenirs from places I'd never been wasn't lost on me. It's called priorities, Emma. I'm saving up for my own vacation now. Mom needs that money more than you need some trip to Europe or wherever. Did she need that money more than she needed a cruise?" Another silence. These were becoming my favorite part of family conversations. The moments when they realized their logic was eating its own tail. That's different. That was a once-in-a-lifetime family experience. Exactly. And I wasn't family enough to be included. Emma's voice got sharp the way it always did when she couldn't manipulate a situation to her advantage. "You're being dramatic. There really wasn't enough space. There were 3,000 people on that ship, Emma. You know what I mean." I did know what she meant. She meant there wasn't space for me in their version of family, the one where I existed to solve problems and pay bills, but not to make memories or matter in any meaningful way. But saying that out loud would require acknowledging years of taking me for granted, and the family had never been big on uncomfortable truths. The attacks escalated from there. Suddenly, I was selfish for not helping with Mom's mortgage. I was bitter and jealous about the cruise. I was holding grudges and being petty. The group chat became a therapy session where everyone analyzed my psychological state and found me lacking in family loyalty, Christian forgiveness, and basic human decency. What they didn't realize was that their words had lost their power. For years, being called selfish or ungrateful had sent me into spirals of self-doubt and desperate attempts to prove my worth through even more giving. But when you've already accepted that you don't matter to these people, their disapproval becomes surprisingly meaningless. I left the group chat. Then I blocked Emma's number after she called me 6 times in one evening to tell me what a disappointment I was. I blocked Aunt Linda when she sent me a 3-page text about honoring thy mother. I blocked cousin Jake when he showed up at my apartment uninvited to talk sense into me. For the first time in my adult life, my phone was peaceful. But they weren't done. When direct confrontation failed, they tried guilt. Mom's health was declining from stress, according to Emma. The family was falling apart without my stabilizing presence, according to Aunt Linda. I was destroying decades of family unity over one misunderstanding, according to Uncle Bill. They sent flying monkeys distant relatives who called out of nowhere to ask if everything was okay between me and Mom. Old family friends who happened to run into Mom at the grocery store and heard how worried she was about our relationship. Even my former high school boyfriend reached out on Instagram to ask if I wanted to talk about whatever was going on with my family. The manipulation was so transparent, it was almost funny. Almost. The final straw came when I found out they'd been telling people I was having a nervous breakdown. Cousin Sarah let it slip during an awkward encounter at Target. "I'm so glad to see you're doing better," she said, her voice dripping with false concern. "We were all so worried after your episode." My episode. As if setting reasonable boundaries was a mental health crisis. That night I made a decision that would have seemed impossible 6 months earlier. I started planning something that would make their little cruise look like a puddle jump. If they wanted to see what I could do when I stopped holding back, I was more than happy to show them. The truth about the cruise came out by accident, the way family secrets always do, through the least trustworthy person at exactly the wrong moment. I was having lunch with my cousin Rachel Dad's brother's daughter, who'd always been something of an outsider herself. Rachel lived in California and only saw the family during major holidays, which meant she had the luxury of observing our dysfunction from a safe distance. She'd been at the cruise too, but she'd also been asking uncomfortable questions about my absence that no one wanted to answer. "I need to tell you something," she said, picking at her salad, "about why you weren't invited on the cruise." I set down my fork. "I know why. There wasn't space." Rachel's laugh was bitter. "There was space. There were 6 empty cabins." "I know because I helped your mom book the damn thing through my travel agent friend. We got a group rate that was actually cheaper per person because of how many rooms we reserved." The restaurant noise faded to a dull hum. "What? Your mom specifically told the travel agent to exclude you from the booking. She said you'd been difficult lately, and that the family needed a break from your negativity." Rachel's eyes were angry. "I should have said something then, but I thought maybe you two had fought and worked it out privately. When I realized you had no idea you'd been deliberately excluded." The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. The casual cruelty of finding out through Facebook, the rehearsed explanation about space limitations, the way everyone had participated in the lie without blinking. But that wasn't the worst part. "There's more," Rachel continued. "I overheard your mom and Emma talking on the ship. They were laughing about how they'd finally managed a family vacation without having to worry about you managing everything and taking over. Emma said it was like being on vacation from you, not just work. Being on vacation from me, the daughter who'd spent 4 years keeping my mother's home out of foreclosure. The sister who'd organized every family gathering, mediated every conflict, and absorbed every crisis for the past decade. They needed a vacation from me. I excused myself to the bathroom and threw up. When I returned, Rachel was looking guilty. "I'm sorry. I debated whether to tell you, but you deserve to know the truth." The truth. I'd been living in a carefully constructed lie designed to keep me functioning as the family's emotional and financial support system, while ensuring I knew my place in the hierarchy. I wasn't family. I was staff, and apparently even staff deserved occasional breaks from their presence. That evening, I called the one person I'd never thought to ask for help, Grandma Rose Dad's mother, who lived in a retirement community in Florida. At 92, she was sharp as ever, and had never particularly liked my mother's side of the family. "I always wondered when you'd finally see them for what they are," she said, after I told her everything. "Your father would be ashamed of how they've treated you." I feel like such a fool, Grandma. "Honey, the only foolish thing you did was trust people who didn't deserve it. Now what are you going to do about it?" That's when she told me about the trust fund. Dad had set up a trust for me when I turned 18, funded by his life insurance and some investments he'd made over the years. It was supposed to be my college fund, then my wedding fund, then my house down payment fund. But every time I'd needed money, Mom had convinced me to borrow from it rather than liquidate it, promising to pay it back later. Every family crisis, every emergency, every time someone needed help, I dipped into my trust fund to solve the problem. The trust fund that currently held over $180,000. The trust fund that Mom was listed as a co-trustee on, with the power to make withdrawals. The trust fund that she'd been steadily draining for the past 4 years to pay for her own expenses, including her share of the cruise. "I have copies of all the withdrawal records," Grandma said quietly. "I've been watching this happen and waiting for you to ask the right questions. Your father made me promise to let you handle your own finances. But honey, there's handling your finances, and then there's being robbed blind." She'd been stolen from me by my own mother, systematically, methodically, while making me feel guilty for not giving even more. "What can I do?" I asked. "Well," Grandma said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "You can start by removing her as co-trustee. It's your money, and you're over 35, so you have every legal right to control it completely. Then you can demand repayment of every unauthorized withdrawal." She doesn't have that kind of money. She has a house. The implications hung in the air between us. Mom had been using my inheritance to pay her mortgage, while I made additional monthly payments to help her keep the house. She'd been double-dipping using my money to pay her bills, while manipulating me into giving her more money to pay the same bills. "Grandma, there's something I want to do, something that might seem vindictive." "Honey, at my age, vindictive is just another word for justice. What did you have in mind?" I told her about my plan. The plan that had been forming since Rachel's revelation, crystallizing into something beautiful and terrible and absolutely perfect. Grandma Rose laughed, actually laughed, for the first time since Dad died. "Your father always said you were too good for this family," she said. "But I think he'd be proud to see you finally put yourself first." The Queen Mary II was magnificent. I stood on the upper deck of my chartered yacht as the massive cruise ship pulled into port in Barbados, watching through binoculars as my family disembarked for their shore excursion. They looked so small from this distance, tiny figures in tourist clothes, carrying beach bags and cameras, completely unaware that their prodigal daughter was floating 200 yards away on a $50,000 per week yacht charter. Rachel had done her job perfectly. She'd leaked just enough information in the family group chat about running into me at a marina acting weird and talking about some boat. She'd planted the seeds of curiosity without revealing the full scope of what was coming. The family was intrigued, but not alarmed. They were about to be very alarmed. The yacht, appropriately named Second Chances, was a 120-foot luxury vessel, complete with a full crew gourmet galley and enough space to comfortably accommodate 12 guests. I'd invited Rachel Grandma Rose, who'd flown in from Florida, specifically for this, and 3 of Dad's old friends, who'd been quietly watching my family's treatment of me with growing disgust over the years. We also had Uncle Pete, Dad's youngest brother, who'd been excluded from the cruise himself after questioning why I wasn't invited. The guest list was deliberate. Everyone on my yacht was someone who actually cared about me as a person, not as a function. "They're at the beach bar," reported Marcus, Uncle Pete's husband, who was monitoring the family's social media posts. Emma just posted a photo of some fruity drink. Caption says, "Paradise found." "Perfect timing then," I said, checking my watch. "Are we ready?" The plan was elegant in its simplicity. While my family enjoyed their included shore excursion, drinking watered-down piña coladas and buying overpriced souvenirs, I was hosting a catered lunch for 12 on a yacht that cost more per day than their entire cruise. But the real masterpiece wasn't the yacht itself. It was the timing. At exactly 2 p.m., when I knew they'd be gathered for the group photo they took at every destination, Rachel was going to post a very specific image to her Instagram story. An image of our lunch table, set with crystal and fine china, with the cruise ship visible in the background. The caption would be simple. "Thanks for the recommendation, cousin. You were right. Barbados is beautiful." Best vacation ever. Family time. She'd tagged the location and used hashtags that would make the post visible to anyone searching for Barbados content, including family members checking social media during their beach day. "Posted," Rachel announced, holding up her phone with a grin. "The comments should start in 3, 2, 1. My phone started buzzing immediately. Text messages, missed calls, Instagram notifications. I watched the chaos unfold through my notification screen without opening a single message. Grandma Rose, elegant in a white linen dress and designer sunglasses, raised her champagne glass. "To your father," she said. "He would have loved this." We toasted as my phone continued its electronic meltdown. Cousin Jake was calling. Emma was calling. Even some relatives I hadn't heard from in years were suddenly very interested in my whereabouts. But I was busy enjoying chef-prepared lobster thermidor and watching the sunset paint the Caribbean sky in colors that would make a professional photographer weep. The real confrontation came that evening, when their ship was safely back at sea and my yacht was docked at the marina. Emma had managed to get cell service long enough to leave me a voicemail that was equal parts rage and panic. "What the hell is going on? How are you on a yacht? Where did you get that kind of money? Rachel said you're with Grandma Rose and Uncle Pete. Why didn't anyone tell us they were coming to Barbados? Call me back, right now." I didn't call back. Instead, I posted my own Instagram story, a video tour of the yacht's master suite, complete with marble bathroom and ocean views. The caption: "Sometimes the best family vacations happen when you choose your own family. #grateful new beginnings." The phone calls became more frantic. Mom was crying on voicemail about being embarrassed in front of the family. Emma was demanding explanations. Aunt Linda was threatening to call the police because obviously I'd stolen money or lost my mind, or both. But the call that mattered came the next morning, just as we were preparing to sail to our next destination. It was Mom, and for the first time in years, she wasn't making demands. She was begging. "Please, honey, just tell me what's going on. People are asking questions I can't answer. Emma's saying you must have gotten money from your father's estate that you didn't tell us about. Did you find something we missed?" I almost laughed. Even now, even caught red-handed, living better than they'd ever imagined possible, her first instinct was to figure out how to get access to whatever resources I'd discovered. "I didn't find anything, Mom. I just stopped losing things." "What does that mean?" I looked out at the crystal-clear water, at Rachel teaching Grandma Rose to paddleboard, at Uncle Pete and Marcus planning our snorkeling expedition, at people who celebrated my successes instead of resenting them. "It means I got my trust fund back." The silence on the other end was deafening. "Your trust fund, the one you've been emptying for 4 years to pay your bills while I sent you additional money every month. The one that paid for your share of the cruise you didn't have room for me on." More silence. Then quietly, How did you find out? Not a denial, not an explanation. Just the question of someone who'd been caught and was trying to assess the damage. Does it matter? The trust has been transferred into my sole control. The house you've been using my money to pay for, I want every penny back, plus interest. You can sell it. You can take out a loan. You can ask your golden child to help. I don't care how you get it, but you have 60 days. Honey, please, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. You stole from me while making me feel guilty for not giving you more. You excluded me from family events while spending my money to attend them. You made me believe I was the problem while you were robbing me blind. My voice was steady calm. I'd practiced this conversation in my head for weeks. The lawyer's letters will be delivered when you get back from your cruise. Enjoy the rest of your vacation, Mom. I know I'm enjoying mine. I hung up and blocked her number. The yacht's captain approached with a smile. Ready to set sail for St. Lucia, miss? The weather's perfect for the crossing. I looked back at the cruise ship, a distant speck on the horizon, carrying people who'd spent years making me believe I wasn't worthy of their table scraps. They were heading back to their regular lives, their problems, their carefully maintained illusions about who they were and what they deserved. I was heading toward open water and unlimited possibilities. Set sail, Captain. I've got nowhere to be but here. 6 months later, I was building a garden in my new backyard when Mom's car pulled into my driveway. I didn't look up from the raised bed I was constructing, didn't acknowledge her presence until she cleared her throat twice. When I finally glanced over, she looked smaller, somehow diminished, older. She was holding an envelope in her hands, like it might contain her salvation. Hello, Mom. Can we talk? I went back to arranging stones along the border of my garden bed. About what? About the house, about the money, about us. The lawsuit had gone exactly as my lawyer predicted. When faced with documented evidence of unauthorized withdrawals from my trust fund withdrawals that coincided with her mortgage payments, car repairs, and yes, cruise deposits, Mom had no defense. The court ordered full repayment plus legal fees. She'd been forced to sell the house, the one I'd been helping her keep for 4 years, with money that was already mine. There's no us, Mom. There hasn't been for a long time. She stepped closer, and I could see the envelope was shaking in her hands. I brought this for you. It's a check for the full amount, plus the interest the court ordered. I didn't reach for it. Put it on the porch table. Honey, please. I know I made mistakes, but I'm your mother. Family forgives each other. Family works through problems. I finally stopped working and looked at her directly. You're right. Family does forgive each other. Family includes each other in special occasions. Family doesn't steal from each other while pretending to be grateful for handouts. Her eyes filled with tears, the same tears that had manipulated me for decades. But I'd learned to see them differently now, not as evidence of her pain, but as tools in her arsenal. I never meant for things to go this far. The trust fund money, I was borrowing it, not stealing it. I always planned to pay it back. With what money? You couldn't even pay your mortgage without my help. I thought if I could just get caught up on things, get stable, then I could start paying you back, little by little, while continuing to take my monthly payments. She had no answer for that. The cruise, Mom. Explain the cruise. Her face crumpled. We thought you'd been so stressed, so controlling about family events. We thought maybe if we planned something ourselves without your input, it would be better for everyone. So you spent my money to exclude me from a family event because I was too involved in family events. The absurdity of it hung in the air between us. Even she could see how twisted the logic was. I know how it sounds. It sounds like you wanted the benefits of having me as a daughter without actually treating me like one." She stood there for a long moment, looking lost. "What can I do? How can I fix this?" I returned to my garden. "You can't. Some things can't be fixed, only learned from. So that's it. After 38 years, you're just done." I thought about the question seriously. Was I done? Done with the manipulation, the taking the casual cruelty disguised as family love. Done being the family's emergency fund and emotional dumping ground. Done setting myself on fire to keep people warm who wouldn't piss on me if I was actually burning. "I'm done being your daughter on your terms," I said finally. "If you want a relationship with me, it has to be built on respect, honesty, and actual affection. Not need, not convenience, not because I'm useful. I do love you. You love what I do for you. There's a difference." She was crying freely now, but I felt nothing. No urge to comfort her, no guilt for causing her pain, no instinct to minimize my own hurt, to spare her feelings. It was remarkably peaceful. "The family thinks you've changed," she said, as if this was an accusation. "Emma says you've become cold." I almost smiled. "Emma can think whatever she wants. She's not getting any more of my money either. It's not about money. It was always about money, Mom. Money and labor and emotional work that you took for granted. But mostly money." I stood up and brushed dirt off my hands. "I'm happy now. Really happy for the first time in years. I have friends who actually like spending time with me. I have hobbies I never had time for when I was managing everyone else's crises. I sleep through the night without worrying about who needs what from me." She looked around my property, the neat craftsman house I'd bought with cash, the professional landscaping, the expensive outdoor furniture. All of it paid for with money I'd had all along. Money that should have been improving my life instead of subsidizing everyone else's. "I never realized you were so well off," she said quietly. "I wasn't. I gave it all to you, remember?" The check sat on my porch table between us, a physical representation of years of theft finally being returned. But we both knew that money couldn't buy back the birthdays I'd spent alone, the holidays I'd hosted, while being treated like hired help, the constant stress of being everyone's solution to everything. "I should go," she said. "Yeah, you should." She was halfway to her car when she turned back. "Will you ever forgive me?" I considered the question. Forgiveness was complicated. I didn't hate her anymore. Hate required too much energy, and I was saving my energy for better things. But forgiveness didn't mean pretending the past hadn't happened, or opening myself up to future harm. "I forgive you for being who you are, Mom. I just don't want who you are in my life anymore." She nodded like she understood, but I doubted she did. Understanding would require acknowledging the full scope of how she'd treated me, and people like my mother were masters at protecting themselves from that kind of self-reflection. After she left, I picked up the check and looked at the amount. Every penny accounted for just like the court had ordered. It should have felt like victory, but mostly it felt like closing a book I should have stopped reading years ago. Rachel called that evening. "How are you doing? I saw your mom's car in your driveway. She brought the money." "And how do you feel?" I looked out my window at the garden I was building, at the life I was creating with intention and care. Tomorrow, I was flying to Italy with Grandma Rose, a trip we'd planned with money that was actually mine to spend. Next month, I was starting pottery classes. In the fall, I was considering graduate school. "Free," I said. "I feel free." They said I was heartless for walking away from family. They said I was cruel for demanding accountability. They said I'd changed to become someone they didn't recognize. They were right about that last part. I had changed. I'd become someone who put my own heart first for once. And my heart was finally, beautifully, wholly mine. Story 2. 2 weeks prior to our wedding, my fiancée took me to therapy before attempting to trick me into getting married in public. She is now pleading for another opportunity. 2 weeks ago, we were getting married. She asked me to accompany her to therapy. She wanted to talk to me before the wedding so we could be completely honest with each other, and she was already seeing a therapist on her own. I thought that sounded strange. I thought that we were already completely honest with each other. We were getting married in 2 weeks after all. She also kept her therapy sessions private and was very protective of them. It felt strange to be welcomed there because I had never met her therapist. When the time came, I went there. However, I kept my phone open and recorded any sounds for my own protection. My fiancée was there already. Before I was allowed inside, I had to wait for 20 minutes. I am greeted and given a handshake by the therapist. We spoke briefly. She claims that I am completely different from how my fiancé characterized me. She must be trying to give me a compliment. This might be more difficult than we anticipated, she says, turning to face my fiancé. I was totally freaked out by that. However, I am a cool-headed individual who doesn't react. Rather, I continue to smile foolishly, as we all do when we're uncomfortable. The therapist then begins to speak, giving a succinct speech that I would prefer not to repeat. As the therapist starts to explain that we live in a modern society and that she wants us to have a non-traditional marriage, in the future my fiancé holds my hand. I grin. In my opinion, I'm not sure what that means. She seems to want to talk about how she will not be a slave to her husband, how she will not give up her life, her career, etc. Girl power and other aspects of modern womanhood. Not at all. In fact, she's talking about how she wants to be allowed to sleep with other men after we get married, which is another unconventional kind of marriage. She loves me and would feel uncomfortable if I had the same privileges because she would be upset if I found other women attractive. I forgot it was 2018 and I was taken from her by one of them. So I listened to them finish. Their confidence in speaking increased as a result of my silence, and they were highly articulate. And even though I remained silent, it was obvious that they had practiced this. I then inquired about the therapist's license status. She did not expect this to be the first thing I said based on her response. Yes, she replied. I therefore gave her instructions to tell my fiancé why we were ending our engagement and would not be staying together, starting right away. I left the office after wishing them luck. I want to go to the therapist now. I'm not sure if there is a body that regulates therapists or if I need to report her to the clinic. I want her to pay the price because I don't think their plan to corner me is professional. I didn't feel comfortable during that session. To be clear, the conversation would not have had any beneficial effects. I was with my fiancée and the therapist. I could have slept with other women if she had desired an open marriage. It would have ended the same way. There is no marriage there. It's unfortunate. I also considered the possibility that she had cheated on me. Now that I'm mentally clear, some things don't seem to make sense. In any case, I was a fool. Even after listening to the recording, I still find it hard to believe what was said. In any case, I canceled the wedding. I'm a really laid-back guy. I don't want arguments, so there aren't any. Since my life is founded on values and common sense, there are no conflicts or adversaries. My ex might have thought I would be easy to approach like a doormat because of that. However, she is a fool for assuming that after hearing the tape a few times, the therapist would have realized that I am not who my fiancé must have claimed to be during their sessions. Therefore, this might be more difficult than we anticipated. People are starting to ask me questions now that the wedding is over, and I find it awkward to respond. How should I go about this? I have the recording, so even though I'm sure my ex is trying to minimize the harm, I won't hesitate to let people know what she wants us to discuss if she veers too far off course. However, I'm unsure of what to say to my parents and relatives who are demanding answers. I don't want them to think I'm a fool for allowing my ex to become so self-assured that she told me straight out that she wanted to sleep with other men. In addition, she is destroying my brother's phone, my best friend's phone, and my own phone. This is something we can work on. During the therapy session, they told me things that I didn't understand. She'll stop at nothing to make this right. The therapist came up with the idea. She opposed it, and so forth. The last cry of a siren in death. Her cries are all ignored. Those ears belong to me. In addition, we were trying to get a loan to buy a house, but I called it quits. I essentially broke off all of our financial and other connections. Her current appeal stems from the fact that she expressed concerns about our sexual history while undergoing treatment. Regardless of whether this was true or not, the therapist recommended that we level the playing field because I had a lot more partners than she did. Once I know where to go and what to say, I will report that therapist. Although the majority of this post is a tirade, I would like to know how you would respond to inquiries from loved ones. I don't want to be in a, he said. She said situation. And my ex is undoubtedly handling the damage on her own. I have the recording, and I wanted to know if I should give it to the appropriate people. I have the recording, but my ex is unaware of it. A brief update. I just got word that my ex has received the diary back, and I'm at work. Our office uses a courier, so I sent it early in the morning. She had to sign a confirmation order acknowledging receipt. She never took responsibility for the incident, so I decided that reading it would be useless, as many have suggested. Thank you. One update. Aside from the jokes, the 2 weeks since my first post have been interesting. I discussed the issue with the therapist with a lawyer at work last Monday. He asked me if it was a hoax, looking at me as though I was lying to him. I then asked him if he wanted to listen to the recording. "Damn right," he replied. The following day, I spoke with him once more. He pointed out a few things I missed on the recording at the end. "We think we want," the therapist would say. We discussed it and concluded that she never did. I was asked to speak with you by your ex. For example, your ex wants you to know, "We were always there, that and this." He also asked me what my ultimate objective is. Should I file a lawsuit? I agreed with him that I didn't have a case. Instead of filing a lawsuit, I intended to notify the appropriate authorities and let them handle the therapist. 2 letters were chosen to be written, one to the American Psychological Association and one to the clinic where the therapist works. By Wednesday, we made sure she was accredited. One of the 2 case researchers was among several other staff members who knew about the situation. She contacted 2 of her previous patients, looked up online reviews, and conducted research on the therapist. Reviews of the therapist weren't the best. We were able to locate the 2 people we spoke with on social media because people were upset with her. They would have been happy to help. After we clarified the situation, their accounts were no more impressive than mine. As we added the side stories of the other 2 individuals, along with my own explanation of how my ex changed after beginning treatment sessions, and a detailed account of my meeting with the therapist, the letters grew in size. I had a meeting with her parents last Friday. We spoke when her parents came to visit my parents. My ex was also there, and more details were disclosed, which were incorporated into the therapist's report. We disseminated the reports this week. The clinic responded. On Thursday morning, they probably wanted to know if it was a joke or a real issue, so they called our office. We verified that it was genuine after speaking with one of their attorneys over the phone. On their end, someone else could be heard saying, "Well, crap," in the background. "We take this very seriously," they said. This was the first time it had been so well documented. But one of the guys at work came to the conclusion that they had undoubtedly had other complaints before. Their letter also explained their prompt response by saying, "We are reporting this to APA," which may have turned on the heat as well. I think my problem is solved, but I'm not sure what will happen. But after talking to the other 2 patients this therapist treated, I fervently hope she is investigated because she seems crazy and has a hidden agenda. She also destroyed their relationships. In other words, one of them was a woman. My ex and her parents come next. Last Friday, I received a call from my parents asking me to come visit them after work. My ex's parents were also there when I surprised her. When I first saw their cars in my parents' driveway, I wanted to get out of there. She attempted to control the meeting even though it was supposed to be on my terms. There was no way that would occur. My ex was waiting for me outside, I promise. She had a nice appearance. If you ever wanted to introduce your parents to a girl, she was the living example of it. They are coming to talk to me and see if we can work this out, she told me. Her parents are not them. She either gave them a version of a story they didn't believe or never told them what had happened. She had a journal with her. Before beginning treatment, she started writing in it, and she kept going until Friday morning. She told me that if I read it, it will make everything clear. It's not a book club, I told her. She asked if I had 10 minutes before I could enter and begin the circus. Before I met with her parents, she kept bringing me her journal and crying, and she wanted to talk to me for 10 minutes. My sister then arrived. Then the sister of my ex appeared. They came out to see how we were doing and were already there. In order to claim as much of my parents' garden as I could, I took her notebook, went inside, said hello, and left my ex in the back. There are many trees and benches in their large garden. Her employment was terminated. She broke down because the stress was too much for her. It never got better, only got worse. She has stopped going to her therapist. She started going to the therapist for work-related problems, but the topic soon shifted to our relationship, and the therapist only cared about that because that was all she was interested in. She didn't explain to her parents why she was my ex. At the moment, she is seeing a different therapist. I simply listened. She changed the subject from herself to us. I was assured that I would be in charge. I'll take care of the money. I'll have access to every gadget she owns. I will have the ability to monitor her whereabouts. I will be the legal owner of any property we own. She'll do anything. I want to have faith in her once more, based on her statements from the previous few weeks' correspondence. She included more items on her list than I did. I don't know how she thinks either of us could lead a healthy lifestyle. If she had cheated, I inquired. She admitted to me that she had the chance to cheat, but chose not to. It infuriated me, but I believed her. When she claims to have had the chance, what does she mean? You would not put yourself in this situation if you were in a committed relationship. This is not an opportunity you want. Saying, I had the opportunity to kill someone today, is analogous. However, why? When you had such a chance, what were you doing? Why call it an opportunity? It sounds like something positive. That pretty much ended our 10-minute conversation, and I told her we should go talk to our parents. So we did. I requested our sisters to leave us alone since what we were about to discuss was not their concern. My sister huffed and puffed, but a stone house can withstand hurricanes, and she was not one. So I told about what happened, how the therapy session went, and my determination. I never said that I had a recording since I didn't have to. My ex corroborated everything I had said, which astonished me. Her father had teary eyes which shattered my heart. Her mother asked her if this is how she believes. They raised her and requested an explanation. My ex practically told them the same story. Work-related stress, despair, breakdown treatment, and the therapist's desire to discuss just our relationship. The therapist informed her that our connection was the source of all her stress, that the therapist persuaded her. I desired an open relationship that she may lose me if she does not share her sexual experience with me. How my reaction jolted her out of her lethargy. She resigned her work and is seeking something less stressful. She will try anything to get me back. Started weeping. My ex referenced the diary again, saying that if I read it, it would explain everything. and that while she disagreed with the therapist's opinions, she went along with them. Since the therapist was a person of authority and expertise, our parents frowned at me, and I told them that I don't read someone's private journal unless they're a dead poet. A big mistake. My objective was to convey that if someone is a writer or a leader, their private notebooks typically become literature and are published after their death. Also, I was hoping they'd get the idea that I don't want to read her journal because it would be pointless. What was done was finished. Everyone stared at me as if I wished death on my ex. You could smell the hatred in the air. So I said fine, fine, and vowed to read her journal. You win some, lose some, and then use the incorrect phrases resulting in even more losses. My ex is seeing a new therapist. She showed her parents the confirmation emails for her appointments. He's an older man with a white beard like Freud. I looked for him online. He is married, attends conferences, and has written several books there on Amazon. Seems like a solid character. Can you kids figure this out? This was the second thing that made me angry that day. As if this is child's play, and we should simply listen to the adults. We are not old enough to govern our own emotions, and we should certainly not define what constitutes a betrayal that cannot be recovered from. We are just kids, and we should just work it out. So I won't back down from the Dead Poets Society remarked earlier. And that's how the day ended. We've known each other for 9 years, and been a couple for 5. Even if there are real causes for her behavior, how can you return to normalcy? This was not even a reset. My perspective on my ex has profoundly shifted. She became a stranger. Yes, I know a lot about her. I still find her attractive. There's no disputing how great she looked last Friday, but it was also calculated. And I'm not going to lie to myself here. Hair done the way I like it. Clothing I got for her. Shoes. I like a hint of the scent I gave her, etc. I have the journal on my bedside table. I haven't read it, and probably won't. To make sure it was a year old, I went through it. It is, too. The way the page is folded and moves through the pages makes it obvious that the ink on the first few pages is older. I tested the journal that had the pen she used attached to it. The ink seems to be the same, and the pen's ink level matches how much I think the pen has been used to write in the journal over the past 12 months. It's not a hoax. A year's worth of wear and tear is evident in every aspect of it. This doesn't seem like it would make for enjoyable reading. Am I a tool for playing mental games? Not really, though. She didn't intend to use it as manipulation when she began writing it a year ago, in my opinion. Her new therapist asked her to share the journal with me if what she told me is accurate. Regarding how I handle people who are too interested in the reason behind the wedding's cancellation, we had a big argument that we were unable to settle, to put it mildly. But everyone will know the real reason if her sister finds out, which is very likely, considering her sister's close bond with their mother. Next week, our parents would like us to get together once more. They advised me to read the journal. Perhaps that will be helpful. Since we have so much history, perhaps we can work on it and start over. She will be treated. She will recover. Although she is not doing well at the moment, she is still the woman I fell in love with. They see how much I still love her. I wouldn't be so dramatic with their words, not mine, otherwise. She looked stunning, but I doubt I'll be seeing them next Friday. I want to express my gratitude to the community for their help and encouragement. It was sufficient to assist me in creating a strategy for the therapist. We appreciate everyone who provided resources and actionable information. How should I handle her journal? Give it back, save it, and read it in 90 years. The second update. Let's get started. The clinic no longer employs the therapist. The main justification for the move most likely has something to do with the lawsuit against the clinic. Someone else is suing the clinic, and it has nothing to do with my situation. I don't know anything more about the topic. The therapist tried, but failed to get through to Mel. She must have heard about my report on her and wanted more details, but who can say for sure? She didn't engage with Mel. Her inquiries went unanswered and she was blocked. A voice in the back of my mind is telling me that it might not have been the best idea to put that report together. I think it makes it more likely that the people who are behind the suit will get in touch with me to ask for help and give me unwanted attention. Even though I know the therapist is in trouble, I can't help but smile contentedly. I have feelings to those who have voiced skepticism. If this isn't sufficient evidence, I'm not sure what will make you happy. I ask God to help you understand sarcasm, but Muriel makes things much more difficult. I updated my earlier post about her journal with a brief update. I chose to return it, and I did so in a very clinical manner. She received the journal from our work courier on Monday morning. A letter outlining my reasons for not reading it was included. It all boiled down to her refusal to take ownership of the circumstance. I had the impression that she had wiped her hands of the problem by giving me the book, leaving me to bear the burden of solving it. I cleaned my hands of the situation in return. I must admit that when they informed me that the journal had been returned, I experienced a twinge of sadness. Maybe I ought to have read it. Later in the day, Sophie showed up at my place of business. She didn't start such a commotion. She just patiently waited in the lobby. She wanted to talk to me after she waited for me to finish my day. I quickly found out she was there, of course. I could either talk to her or send her away. So we talked. The breakdown of our collaboration was planned by a number of architects. Stress is the top priority. I knew this, but in hindsight, I never saw how serious it was. I should have been more aware of the situation when she started looking for a therapist to help her deal with the stress of her job. But why wouldn't I believe her when she insisted that everything was fine? She had a breakdown at work that she concealed from me and her family, regardless of whether she was seeing a therapist or not. 2. I might have been a dad. Her pregnancy ended in miscarriage. A few weeks ago, she discovered she was expecting, and she wanted to make the announcement to me particularly memorable. But a few days later, she started to bleed. That was the end of it. She was afraid I would think she was unworthy, so she never told me about it. This would give me the impression that she is incapable of having children, and she knows how much I want to be a father. This is an absolutely awful idea. The third friend. We had friends in open relationships, as I mentioned in the comments, and she has one of them. About a year ago, she invited Sophie to lunch over the phone. She immediately started to vent to Sophie about her failing marriage. I share this trait with her husband. Compared to significant others, we have had a lot more partners. In my situation, the husband of this friend had 26 previous partners. The number was an astounding 70. He demanded an open relationship from his wife as soon as they were married, and she has been unhappy ever since. It seemed Sophie would suffer the same fate if she didn't take precautions to keep me safe. This acquaintance informed me that prior to their marriage, I was displaying the same symptoms as her spouse. Fourth, our loved ones are not who we believe them to be. Our fathers have been friends for 30 to 35 years and are both academics. They frequently go to parties and get-togethers connected to their jobs, usually with their spouses. That's how Sophie and I met. I wanted to meet a professor who could have aided me in my career, so my father and I went. Due to a scheduling conflict, Muriel filled in for her mother, who was informed that she was unable to attend. It turns out that her father's infidelity was the reason behind her parents' hardship. Mom only recently learned about this when she spoke with her mother about the issues brought up by her friend number 3. This was a clear surprise because her parents were the ideal couple and an example to follow. They undoubtedly work things out and keep the notion of a lovely marriage intact. These, along with a therapist who has dubious intentions, are the ingredients for a breakup for apocalyptic horsemen. My open relationship was something the therapist was very eager to arrange. She validated what the friend stated: men like me will never be satisfied with one lady. I'll eventually look for more. There is only one way to fix my cheating tendencies. Sophie must sleep with other guys, at least until we are even. Of course, I'll be against it, but that's fantastic. I'll understand if I love Mel. This was a multi-layered concept. It will correct my infidelity, confirm my love for her, and thereby strengthen our bond. This approach would have obviously failed, and I suppose this is exactly what the therapist was aiming for. Without a doubt, our relationship would have ended. The therapist was surprised by how fast I reacted. This is my current theory anyway. She answered all of my questions during our daily meetings for the remainder of the week. One thing was clear. While I was ready to end things, she was not. She was ready to battle for her life, if it meant saving our relationship. At the end of the week, I had to depart for another city for work-related reasons, and I was gone for 1 month. The trip was supposed to last 2 weeks, but it had to be extended for an additional 2 weeks. More billable hours. Hey. Before leaving, I gave Sophie a copy of the therapy session tape. She knew I had it. It was one of the first topics. She came to my office on Monday, and I talked to her. I think she was completely rocked by the recording. The recording and her recollection of the therapy session were very different. I think she finally realized the root of all my actions and behavior toward her. My family knew I was on a work trip, so I spent the next 3 weeks alone. That there was so little disruption was astounding. Several commenters offered to join me for a beer if I ever went to their city. The first time I saw another Redditor, I went up to them. It turns out that he is not a weirdo. He was a good man, as was his wife. In the 4th week, Sophie visited. For the past 3 weeks, we had been communicating, sharing ideas on a wide range of subjects that were always about us. There was one major problem to solve. We planned to take a 2-week honeymoon trip to France after our wedding. We were unable to do it immediately. It was set for 3 months after the wedding and was drawing near. The plane tickets we had were non-refundable. Why do confirms do this? A hotel reservation was made for us. What we were without ourselves. After talking more during the 4th week, we made the decision to become friends and travel to France. As you read the last few words, I can already picture your eyes rolling. France was fantastic. When you travel to a place like that, you realize how archaic the United States appears. By contrast, you can easily identify Americans when you visit a museum. It should be mandatory for our schools to teach students how to act in other countries. As a couple, we came back from France. The charm of Paris is unrelated to this, but there will be a procedure. We have not returned to who we were before. Some rebuilding needs to be done. We had a number of things in common. She is looking for a new job that involves less stress, but she is not in any particular order. We will no longer interact with our friends and open marriages because they are now viewed as harmful influences. Our first daughter will be named Sophie, a name we both like. France, thank you. Never keep anything from your partner, including a miscarriage. This has really infuriated me. We'll get a kitten and a dog. For a while, she will keep going to see her present therapist. When we do tie the knot, it will be a small ceremony attended only by our close relatives. Next, we'll most likely travel to Italy. I suppose this isn't the thrilling announcement that everyone was hoping for. A lot of people have requested an update, and I'm sure there is one that permits all of that, and more if you're looking for rage hatred or retribution. However, as I stated at the beginning, I didn't hate Sophie at the time. I only did what I did because I wanted to protect myself. Her behavior suggested that she wanted something different from what I thought we both wanted. Regarding her mental condition, there is nothing to worry about. She was more or less the same person she had been before the effects of her therapist faded. It is impossible to avoid being impacted by these events. She's in a good place though. As you remember, She gave me complete control over her finances, gave me the ability to track her everywhere, and gave me complete access to all of her gadgets. They were merely an attempt to carry on the conversation, aside from the fact that I had no interest in such a way of life. Since we have always been open, and we all agree that we should be open about our devices, nothing will change in this regard. We will carry on as we have in the past with regard to finances. Distribute them. Story 3. I paid for a reunion, but my family abandoned me, asked for my forgiveness after my sister stole my money. I contacted the police and presented them with an invoice over supper. As soon as I pulled into the parking lot, I should have known something was off. There are no familiar vehicles, no noise, and no cousins smoking next to the trash cans while feigning inattention. Nothing but quiet. Friday at 7 p.m. I checked the message once again. 2 weeks ago on a Friday at 7:02 p.m. Mateos's mother sent everyone, and he is eager to meet them all. I arrived on time, like a fool. Mellow jazz and clinking cocktails replaced the cold air as soon as I entered. The private room I had rented for was closed and dark, although the building wasn't entirely empty. "What can I do for you?" "Sir," the hostess asked, hardly raising her gaze. "Yes, the Thompson party, a private eating area." She looked over the list. "Yes, indeed. That was yesterday night." I blinked. "No, it happened tonight. I made the deposit payment. I made the reservation." Her head was cocked. "There were 16 persons present, sir. Huge kick. Your mother provided place cards. Do you really think you're not confused?" I chuckled. I laughed, actually, one of those stinging dry ones that runs out in the middle of your mouth. "I'm not perplexed, no." She hesitated in embarrassment. "Would you want to give someone a call?" I did not answer her. I had already started to dial. Before she answered, the phone rang twice. "Hello, dear," Mom whispered, her tone light and informal. "Is everything all right?" I stared straight forward. Where is everyone? After a moment, she let out that squeaky little chuckle that she always had when she realized she had messed up, but didn't want to admit it. "It was yesterday, honey. We assumed you wouldn't show up. We'll send you leftovers, though, so don't worry." I went cold. "What is like it were no big deal," she repeated it. "Yesterday was the day. We'll deliver leftovers to you." I didn't even bid them farewell. I simply hung up. No one returned the call. Not Rachel, not Mom, not anybody. Then a text message showed up. "Rachel. Low. Meow. You truly missed it, bro. Traditional. Don't worry, one roll was saved for you." My hand was trembling, but I couldn't tell if it was from anger or cold. The hostess caught my attention. They arrived. They consumed food. They departed. She gave a shrug. They appeared to be enjoying themselves. They did, of course. Usually they do while I'm not around. I left without more comment. Didn't write in the group chat, call, or shout. However, I also didn't return home. With the engine off, I sat in the car and gazed at my image in the mirror. I'm thinking about the 10 unread SMS I sent my mother 3 days ago to check the time, the bill, and the vehicle fee. They were all aware. They just didn't give a damn. Together, they had decided on it. And I would make mine tomorrow. You would assume that the hardest thing would be being left out of a family meal that was paid for. No, it wasn't. It was the icing on the cake after 5 years of garbage. Their exclusion of me was not the first time. Not even close. For the first time, they were sincere enough to not pretend. I was never considered first. As a child, Rachel was the intelligent one who required minimal assistance to get going. It was me who needed very little. That was their way of saying that you could survive without love, in order to avoid wasting it on you. I proudly phoned my mother when I got my first professional job. She didn't offer congrats. She gave a terrific response. "You may now at last assist your sister with her rent." That was only the start of it. Rent for a month turned into a year. Next were bills. She then had dental work done. Next, think about auto insurance. Textbooks for her new nursing program followed, but she discontinued it after just one semester and never paid me back. I made the payment because I thought it was the right thing to do when you love your family. In my family, however, love only goes one way. Every time I brought it up, even in a tactful way, I was told to stop being so transactional. We are related. Rachel is experiencing a lot. You are aware of that. You're outperforming her. You're keeping score, but why I wasn't keeping score? They just wouldn't acknowledge that I was bleeding. I remember sending Rachel $600 for her emergency veterinarian bill one evening 2 years ago. She posted an Instagram story later that day that included a man's hand wrapped around a champagne glass, new shoes, and freshly painted nails. I told the story to Mom. "You guys are so petty about money," she said, smirking as she scrolled. Petty since Dad forgot. And the county issued a clean warning. I paid their property taxes last winter. After she lost her job, I paid Rachel's credit card minimums for 6 months, in spite of the fact that I was hardly alone. I spent all of my money on gifts for everyone one Christmas. What did I receive then? A family picture in a frame. Nothing like the night I discovered what they really thought of me, even though I wasn't in it. About 6 months have passed since then. I was spending the weekend at my parents' house. Rachel had just overdrafted her account again, and I had just helped her out of another bind this time, with $1,200. I heard voices in the living room as I went downstairs to get some water. Rachel answered. His desire to be the martyr consumes him. "It's pitiful," she said. "I am aware that he presents himself as a savior simply because he makes purchases." He was laughing. Let him cover the cost. In any case, he will not find a wife. It might as well be helpful. Russell was paralyzed as he stood in the hallway first. Smugly, Rachel repeated. "He believes that without him, we would disintegrate, you know." Please snort. I wouldn't even notice if he vanished tomorrow. I stayed out of the room. I returned to the upper floor, lay in bed, and gazed up at the ceiling. As if nothing had happened, Mom made pancakes the following morning. I stopped sending money for almost 2 weeks after that. "I need help with my rent." Rachel texted her. "I'll reimburse you." Promise I didn't answer. Mom called Mom 2 days later. Bills are behind for Rachel. She's in a terrible situation. She's sensitive, you know that. Why are you acting so aloof? "I just can't keep doing this," I replied. "Maybe we shouldn't have bothered if you're going to punish us for raising you," she said. I didn't realize how much that broke me at the time. Later that day, I sent them money. They had a family reunion without me after all of that. My dinner was paid for. When I called Mom to find out where they were, I was able to confirm a specific time. She was bold enough to claim that it was yesterday. "We'll deliver leftovers to you." Any leftovers? Like a dog. Not a son. Not a brother. Simply a wallet with arms. I sat in the car outside Mateo's for a long time that night. I did not cry. I did not yell. I sat in that heavy, dense silence thinking about every time I'd been the nice guy and how much it had cost me. Tomorrow, I would not be the good one. Tomorrow they discover what it's like when I stop performing my role. And I knew just where to start. I did not sleep that night. Not because I was sad. Not even mad. Honestly, I was calculating after tax and tip. My dinner at Mateo's came to $1,740.168 persons. Appetizers. Menu can be customized. I even paid more for Rachel's vegan food and Aunt Mary's wine allergy accommodations. They did not simply forget me. They were aware. Yet they did it nonetheless. The following morning, I sent a message to the family group chat me. "Let's meet at Mom's tonight at 7 p.m. I've got something for you." Nobody inquired what it was. Of course they did not. They never asked me any questions. At 658, I parked into my folks' driveway. Inside, they had already gathered. Rachel was on the phone. Dad was in his recliner drinking a beer. Mom fluffed the couch pillows, as if we were expecting company. She looked up and grinned. "Hi, honey. We weren't sure if you'd still be upset." I said nothing. Rachel looked up, phony sympathy pasted across her cheeks. "You know we didn't do it to hurt you. She told me it was just easier for everyone to come Thursday. Most of us have lives." She said this with a straight face. I placed a large envelope on the coffee table. "What's this?" Mom inquired. I sat down gently and calmly, saying, "It's a bill." Dad scoffed. "A bill for what? For dinner?" I responded, "The one you all enjoyed without me." Rachel laughed. "You're joking." "I'm not." Mom narrowed her eyes. "Are you seriously trying to make us pay you back?" "No," I replied, leaning forward. "I'm giving you the opportunity, because from now on, anything you want from me comes with an invoice." There was quiet then. Dad sat up straighter. "You need to drop this attitude, son. We are related." "Correct," I responded. "Family. The same family that intentionally excluded me from a reunion. I paid for the same family that's drained me financially and emotionally for 5 years straight." Rachel rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on. No one made you pay." That's when something inside me snapped. I stood up. "You know what? All right, let's talk about what no one made me do." I pointed at Rachel. "I wasn't made to pay your rent for 2 years, or cover your overdraft fees or replace your transmission." I turned to Mom. "I wasn't made to cover your back taxes or pay for your birthday cruise when you said Dad forgot, or pick up groceries when you suddenly couldn't walk because of your knee." Dad's face became red. "Watch it." "Oh, I'm just getting started," I explained, pulling out a printed list from my pocket. "You don't want to hear it." "I do. I've had to live it." And then comes the twist. I took out a folder and tossed it onto the table. "What's this now?" Dad demanded. I smiled. "Documentation of every single transaction, every wire, every Venmo, every Cash App, every receipt." Rachel snorted. "Wow. You really are insane." "No," I replied, dead calm. "I'm protected because I filed a fraud report this morning. All of this." I clicked on the folder. "It's already in the system." "What are you talking about?" Mom inquired, her voice becoming hushed. I stared her directly in the eyes. "Last week I found out someone used my name to open a new credit card, the same one that paid for a new iPhone and a spa package Rachel posted about, but claimed was a gift from a friend." Rachel froze. "I called the credit company. They're investigating it as identity theft. The address they gave them. Yours." She stood up. "Are you kidding me?" "Nope," I replied. "And if you think I won't press charges, you wouldn't dare," Mom hissed. "Try me." The room exploded. Rachel yelled. "You're pathetic," Dad shouted. "You want to send your own sister to jail? You want me to keep playing the idiot forever?" I responded. Heather burst into tears. "You're destroying this family." I replied, going toward the door. "I'm finally saving myself from it." And now for the second twist. As I turned away, someone spoke for the first time. My cousin Luke, the quiet one. He rarely speaks out at family gatherings. "I'd like to pay my share," he stated softly. "Of the dinner. I mean, it's only fair." Everyone looked at him shocked. He added, "And I know I should have said something. But they did plan to exclude you. I was there when they joked about it. Claimed you would be overly dramatic. I apologize. For the first time that evening, I smiled as I glanced at him. Regards. After that, I left. They believed they could use me for as long as they wanted, but they overlooked one thing. Finally, even the silent ones speak up, and we don't whisper when we do. We dialed the police. At 8:17 a.m. the following day, my phone buzzed. This number is private. I grabbed it. Is this Ethan Thompson? Hello? Yes, this is the local precinct of Officer Reynolds. A report of financial fraud involving a credit card that was opened in your name is being investigated by us at this time. Your billing address was associated with your family. We are scheduled to visit the property today in order to make a statement. I remained silent for a while. Do you need me there then? No, sir. Your part is done. We'll proceed from this point. After hanging up, I sat quietly. For once, they would find someone they couldn't gaslight when they opened the door. I didn't have to speak this time. Everything was handled for me by the police. I thought peace would come from silence. Rather, it caused chaos. It is said that when the keystone is removed from an arch, everything falls apart. The keystone wasn't me. The basis was me. And as soon as I moved away, the cards fell out of the house. There was no subtlety in the police visit. They came at 7:45 a.m., according to Mom's lengthy, irate voicemail, while her robe was still on her. Dad was still without his coffee. A male officer and a female officer. Direct, but courteous. We are investigating a claim of identity theft. Your son's name was used to open the credit card. Purchases linked to this address totaled more than $4,000. We must find out who was able to access it. Mom's reaction. There must be an error. We make a nice family. Traditional. They requested to speak with every member of the household. In the middle of the conversation, Rachel tried to leave, saying she had work. She was asked to stay by the officers. Within 5 minutes, she broke. It wasn't even deception. He is always helpful. He wouldn't mind, I thought. Mom jumped right in. She's stressed. It wasn't her intention. Sadly, it was already too late. The officer demanded to see Rachel's phone, recorded everything on video and more. Things got worse at that point. They found texts that Rachel had sent to her friend. Make plans for my brother's spa day using his information. Not sure. He's such a softie. He won't even be aware. Not all of it was fraud. That was evidence that it was premeditated. A detective assigned to the case called me that same day. Enough for us to proceed with charges. Do you want to move forward formally? I asked him to give me a day. My phone exploded that night. There were 27 missed calls, 41 messages. Mom, please, Ethan, we must speak. It was merely an error. She went into a panic. You still have her as your sister. You don't want to ruin her life because of this dad. Rachel, you are a self-centered individual. I'll lose my apartment and my job. This is what you're doing to your own family. It's funny that when I was losing parts of myself for them, nobody seemed to care. One day, I waited. Then I gave the detective another call. Can the formal charge be put on hold? In the short term. He was clear when he said that he agreed. This is persistent. It does nothing but wait. Mom took the initiative at that point. She gave me a call. She has a voice as smooth as silk against a razor. Come to the house if you truly want to make things right. Let's speak in person. I went in spite of my better judgment. I felt bad about it as soon as I entered. As though she were the victim, Rachel sat on the couch and covered herself with a blanket. The anxious matriarch was examining a science thanks to Mom. Dad didn't get up at all. All we want is to recover, Mom said. I asked. The family is being torn apart by this, and we understand how hurt you are. No, I said. That's what Rachel did. Rachel's voice broke. You actually going to the cops surprised me. Who does that? Someone who has endured enough hardship, I said. Mom grabbed my hand. Let's put an end to this. We'll reimburse it. The police are not necessary. It's funny, I said, because you didn't provide that prior to their arrival. As though I had slapped her, she jerked away. At last, Dad said something. You're also not flawless. You consider yourself a hero because of this? I fixed him with my gaze. I feel liberated by it. After that, I departed once more, for good this time. A week has passed. The detective gave me another call. The payment we received for the anonymous charges originated from a joint account that was registered in your parents' names. In any case, would you like to file charges? I pondered for a while. I then said, no, but I added, I want it on record, but not this time. I want her charged if she ever comes into contact with anything that bears my name again. I ended the call when he said yes. And that was the end of them for me. Until someone wants their phone bill paid, there will be no more money, no more guilt, and no more entering rooms and remaining invisible. A fresh beginning. 2 weeks later, I moved out of state. Quiet, small town. Landlord friendly. I pay half as much for rent at home. On my first weekend, I listened to old songs I hadn't heard since college while assembling IKEA furniture. I got what I wanted when I went grocery shopping. No one knocked to ask for assistance, so I sat on my own couch with a book and coffee, and I became aware that I was solely responsible for myself for the first time in 10 years. Here's the worst part, though. I was 3 weeks into my new life when I got a letter. Written by hand. No return address is provided. A checkbook and a folded piece of paper are inside. I appreciate you taking the risk that I never would have taken, Luke, but I don't expect you to forgive me, the paper said. Mateo's bill was half paid with the check. I grinned. He received it even though he owed me nothing. What about the others? They never got back to me. Not on my birthday, please. Not for Christmas. Even when Dad had surgery later that year, it didn't help. It wasn't until I saw a Facebook post from a distant cousin that I learned. And what do you know? Excellent. This was the first time they had known life without me. I was at last able to survive without them. Blood is said to be thicker than water. The second part of this quote is forgotten. However, the covenant's blood is more resilient than the womb's water. To put it another way, chosen loyalty is more significant than shared DNA. I discovered this fact the hard way. The day I left the house was the last time I saw my family's faces. Grabbing the folder and experiencing a burning sensation in my chest. What has transpired since then? Not a single word. And it used to feel like punishment to be silent. It feels like air now. I met someone from my hometown a few weeks ago. I went to high school with this girl. In the hardware store checkout line, she recognized me. Hey, you were Rachel's brother once, right? I stopped and grinned. No, as simple as that. Since I am no longer Rachel's brother, there is no shame without hesitation. I'm not a good son. The bank is not me. I'm not the type of person who arrives after everyone else has left. I am who I am. And that's enough for the first time in 32 years. They thought that without them, I couldn't live. That I would return by crawling. That I needed their kind of affection. Their control is cloaked in intimacy, and their guilt trips are cloaked in concern. They were mistaken. Sunday dinners where everyone toasts themselves while I sit in silence are unnecessary. Check-ins that are basically setups for a request are not necessary for me. I don't have to give an explanation for why I didn't show up for Christmas, moved without a forwarding address, or changed my phone number. Give them time to think. Give them time to stew. Let them justify my absence to their neighbor's extended family, and even to themselves. They know deep down inside themselves. They pushed me out, and I didn't beg to come back for once. Are you curious about the best part? They became unruly. When I demanded respect instead of love, that was it. For such individuals will turn their families into weapons against you. But the instant you cross boundaries, they call you aloof, self-centered, and damaged. None of those things describe me. At last, I am no longer theirs. Rachel, too. She was still employed. She was not imprisoned. But what do you know? Her mask did come off. The entire family now knows what she did, including lying, abusing me, and laughing behind my back while depleting me. Nobody trusts her anymore. Luke walked out of the house. She is no longer allowed to babysit for Aunt Lydia. During a brief phone call, Uncle Brian informed me. That was unexpected. At every family gathering, Rachel's name is mud. You don't have to return. He informed me. It was they who made the mistake. We can all see it now. I will tell you what I told him, though. Who sees it is irrelevant. To what extent did anyone survive? So I did. So, no, I won't act like everything is perfect. I feel guilty, so I won't pick up or send birthday cards. In order for Mom to make passive-aggressive remarks about how hard it is to keep families together these days, I won't show up for awkward potlucks and fake embraces. The best thing that has ever happened to me is that I'm no longer theirs. Now that I'm awake, everything is peaceful. I work and keep my earnings. Whatever I want to eat, I do. I don't feel bad about saying no. When my phone vibrates, I don't flinch. When someone tells me they love me, I don't hold my breath. It's not because they let me go that I am free, but in the end, I stopped waiting for their approval. Permit them to keep any leftover meals. Let them circulate my picture as though I had passed away. Let them talk. Allow them to plead, rant, change the plot, and make me the bad guy. I'll continue to sleep like a newborn, since the truth is simple. I didn't lose any family members when they shut the door on me. That and I were lost. They will never be able to pay that first bill.